Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Jo, their part number HDCC-2012-626-TB. This is a crash chain is what this is. This is a fairly less common crash chain only because it's a 20.5 inch. It's a short one. The common one is going to be 25.5 inch. I forget. Let's take a look. The length of the chain is directly related to the width of the door, and the 2012, 25.5 inch is for like a door that would be about 30 inch wide, something smaller. There is also the 3012, which is for those it's the 30.5 inch length, and that would be for your 3'6", your 4-foot doors. So a 2012 model, a 20.5 inch length, is why I said less common. So the HD heavy duty HDCC heavy duty crash chain -2012 20.5 -626. That's a reference to the color. It's going to be satin chrome, compatible with satin chrome. They say that it's made of steel. These pads are not. They're probably zinc. I doubt that they're brass. I highly doubt they're brass. Not magnetic, probably not brass, probably zinc. That chain, of course, is going to be very steel. That's inside of there. Now the TB, that's the cool part about Jo. They offer real easily TBs, through bolts. Bolt that through your 1 3/4 thick door. And believe you me, if you get a severe enough event, you use the standard screws, believe you me, it will rip the pad right out of the door. And you're going to be left with erupted holes and probably some damage, hopefully no harm to anyone. Through bolting is always the way to go. There's never an argument to not when it comes to a crash chain. Crash chains are not my favorite pieces of hardware at all to do this job because they're usually an afterthought. They're not the best piece of hardware to limit the door from getting too far, whether it's to prevent hitting something or hitting traffic, foot traffic, whatever the case might be. You might have glass in the wall, in the storefront, in the hollow metal frame, glass in the door. Exterior doors that swing out get caught by the wind. Let's say you've got a door closer with a back check valve. Well, that's not intended to arrest the door to stop it. A crash chain will succumb to the fact that I've literally seen the aforementioned scenario where it comes off the wall or off the door, or I've seen the chain actually snap. You get yourself into a 3'8", a 4-foot door with screws. A severe enough event, it's going to fail. So through bolts will help mitigate that problem because you're really going to share that load through the door. But crash chains are sometimes the most elegant way to solve the problem because they will certainly help prevent the door. They've got those spring cushions that are there, and I can stretch this and see how that works. Okay, the proper way would be an overhead stop, but doors and frames usually need to be ordered to account for those. Meaning that generally you're going to have a preparation in the frame or the door, or at a minimum reinforcements for those slide track mechanisms so that you'll drill and tap the screws to secure all of it. That's the best way to go, and you'll certainly notice that when you are entering into a sports stadium, those exterior doors that take that outrageous abuse on a daily basis, they're always going to have overhead stops, overhead holders, friction type that just really kind of require that the door be pushed or pulled a little bit more than normal. But installing the proper hardware does not mean that it's the best choice piece of hardware, and then sometimes you're relegated to the crash chain. Alternatively, what some people can do is get a door closer arm and replace the door closer arm with a dead stop model. Again, not really rated the best way to do it, but it's certainly the second best way to do it. So that's an option as well, although does not always work out that you can do that because of the way that the existing door closer has been templated, depending on degree of opening and where you want the dead stop to occur. Anyway, if you want to talk to us about those two other options, please do so. So the 2012 is going to give you the proper installation for a smaller door, a narrower door. There's a link below this video to a document called Template. All it really is just some dimensional drawings, a couple of the perspectives. Your pad is basically 1.5 by 1.5, a little heavy on 1.5. The overall length is where that 20.5 comes in. You've got those spring shock absorbers at both ends. You could take those forks and fish them out and change the length of the chain if you needed to. It's not easy or fun to do that, but you can if you wanted to make that shorter, suck out. Not that there would be any reason to do this, but if you were doing something very unusual, I suppose you could. I've done it in the past. Fish these two pieces out, this piece out of this piece, and then go to a different link on the chain. So, installation of this. Obviously, you're going to mount part of this to the face of the door, and the other part's going to go to the stop on the header. What the manufacturer does not do is give you any guideline as to where to install that material to, and they just don't, is the answer. So, in order to help determine where you might consider installing the material to, let's take a look. I'm going to take a look at some reference documents that I have and give you a bit of guidance as to how to go about doing that. You're probably, and first of all, you're going to want to certainly take a look at installing the item with the door in the position where you want to stop, and then place both of the pieces where it makes sense, keeping in mind to keep it out of the way of an articulating door closer arm, which you likely have, which shouldn't be a problem. I would probably consider a dimension for this, the part that's going to go to the face of the door, probably something along the lines of, from the edge of the door, I'd start probably 10 inches over and maybe an inch down from the top. From the jamb to the header, from that intersection, I'd go about 13 inch over, 14 inch over, something in that range, and hold the piece about 13 inch over, and then about 10 inch over on the door, and then articulate the door and see how that works. See if that works for where you'd like for it to be, and make any minor adjustments necessary according to the degree of dead stop and then the hardware that you might have attached to the door. But that should work to your advantage, those dimensions to start. If you have ordered it with just these sheet metal screws, have at it. Something will be better than nothing, there's no doubt. But if you were to take that door and really pull on it, the screw withdrawal strength is not going to be that significant. So keep in mind that the more you can do to attach this, the better. Don't weld it. I've had people weld this to just evaporate this material. It's not steel. And if it's zinc or brass, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to weld it. So please don't attempt to weld it. I've had people call me and, what happened to that thing? I tried to weld it. Well, it's not steel. Can't weld that. So the more you can do, the better. Certainly ordering it with through bolts. These would be called through bolts. Would be advantageous. Sex bolts would be better because they would give you a shoulder so that when you tighten the bolt down, you're not crushing the door. And we can help you with sex bolts for these. If you're familiar with what sex bolts are, you would immediately be agreeing, yes, that would be better. Although you have this large pad, so unless you really over-tightened it, you're not going to crush it down. into the header. If you know you're going to be doing this sort of installation, have the frame manufacturer, in a new installation, have the frame manufacturer reinforce all that so you can drill and tap and get yourself some really high grade bolts that will have a high shear strength. Now, finally, there's a link below this video to the model without through bolts, should you want that. I would say order them. They do cost more, but you get them. If you find that you wanted them, then it's going to be a whole to-do to actually get a package of through bolts. There's also a link below this video to the product catalog that will allow you to overview all of Donjo's door controls items, whether that be crash chains or coordinators or carry bars or overhead stops and holders, which we had talked about earlier, push-pull latches, etc. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Donjo products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full line catalog. So, if you have any questions on the Donjo number HDCC-2012-626-TB, crash chain, or any other Donjo product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.